Well, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I'm going to call a meeting to order at 5:30. Alan Woolwich, acting chair. So first we'll have that call order and then our pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we'll go on to public comments. Is there anyone here that has public comment for anything that's not on the agenda this evening? If you do, you need to fill out a card and speaker card. All right, I see none. So we'll move on to reports and executive director's report with Georgiana Gillette.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. In your package on page 4, there's a project status of several projects and initiatives that the TPO is currently working on. The Vision Zero Toolkit was completed and presented at our Vision Zero Summit on April the 14th. And it was a big success. A lot of attendees, we were very excited about the turnout. Our current focus is on school routes analysis and grant development support for the Safe Streets for All grant. That notice of funding opportunity is on the street. Several folks are looking at potentially what type of grants they would want to submit for that particular project. We're also working on a study on Vision Zero speed management and lighting for all of Brevard County. So we're taking a look at that. We've met with the local governments, and so that is ongoing. Beginning on page 5 is our public outreach and engagement report. This is a little bit old information, but Leah and Abby have been very busy with traffic safety outreach with our partners. They have conducted helmet fittings as part of the Brevard County Sheriff's Office e-bike safety class and held numerous safety pop-up events across the county in March and April. Some of those events were TPO, originated in our office, and then others is that we are supporting our partners. So it really is a partnership as we get out and help educate folks on safety. And then a win was the groundbreaking for the county's traffic management center. And this was a partnership between the Florida Department of Transportation, which funded half of the project, Brevard County, which funded the other half, and the TPO. And this facility will enhance real-time incident response, improve traffic management and operations, and support safer travel throughout the region. And it's a facility that we will, Brevard County will be growing into. And so we look forward as we move forward in those investments, because it does require investment and we have to have staff to be able to fully fund that center. So it's exciting as we move forward. So that is my director's report, Mr. Chair. If you have any questions?
Thank you, Georgiana. So any of the BPTAC members have questions for Georgiana report? Okay. Thanks very much. We move on to Warren Bhattacharya for the FDOT report.
Don't have anything specific to report, but I did at the last meeting mention that FDOT is working on e-bike toolkit. It is ready. It will be uploaded to the website this week. So we will share the link as soon as it's available.
Good.
This is working. And we have to press the button. Oh.
All right, thank you, Warren. Any questions for FDOT coordinator? All right, thank you.
I do have a question. I saw a lot of verbiage on the e-bikes. I mean, the pamphlet was full of it.
Your microphone.
It's on your, yeah, Micah, thanks.
I could raise my voice too, you know. I saw a lot of verbiage and it all bubbled around into 3 or 4 things, e-bikes are bicycles. they have the same reason all bicycles do, if they're on the sidewalk, the pedestrian has right away. There's three little items for localities, can they regulate the speed when it's right on sidewalks? And there's an emphasis on the class B bike that can go 28. And that seems to be the focus that everybody has. Am I correct so far?
Yes, but also there are some modified e-bikes that may exceed.
The stick was the big one.
Yeah.
Big, if it won't be legal stuff. Black market is, and cats on the. So with the legal, it's the emphasis seems to be on bicycle that has pedal assist only 48. That tells me that the people that are riding this don't squat. I can go on the giant 21 speed and I can go faster than 28 miles an hour on assist. You know, it's only electric assist pedal only 28 miles an hour. And you don't see many of those on the road. What you do see on the road is folks that don't know how to ride a bicycle, not pedaling. And I don't care if you're going 15, 20 miles an hour, they don't know any rules on the road. And the Black Cat Bar, when they get too many DUIs, that's what they buy. They buy those motorized. And I don't see any emphasis or control on the motorized. But if you actually are out there on the road, I own 13 bicycles and 3 bikes. So I'm out there and I see what's going on. And the class 3 to 28 mile an hour ones are not the problem. Problem are the class 2, which are trottle only, where you don't have to pedal. That's where the school kids are reckless because they don't have to pedal and you watch it. If you see a couple of school kids on a bicycle, you know, doing this and that, riding double, they're not pedaling, they're on power. And if you're on the trails, and if you see somebody reckless, that telling you they're passing and, you know, it's going this and that, and maybe even taking a shot of something, it's the class 2. So the class 2 are the problem bikes, but because they're regulated to no faster than 20 miles an hour, everybody assumes they're safe and they're keeping their hands off. And that tells me they don't know what the hell is going on out there, because that's a bicycle that should be looked at. If you don't pedal it, it's bringing out a bicycle, it's a motorbike. If you don't have to pedal it, there's more opportunity to text, talk on your phone, and not to pay attention. And I don't see enough emphasis on that. I see all the emphasis on safety for the class 3. And I'm just bringing that up just for general information, and I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Pete. Yeah, we've got a presentation coming up on e-bikes. That's in the later part of our agenda.
So I read the entire presentation and both notes of the package, and we're just going to see that again. And I'm just,
Well, some of us haven't, so we'll appreciate it.
and I'm just one of the ladies here in DOT, and I've got a chance to talk to her, sharing a little bit I know with her. I don't care if she believes it or doesn't believe it, right? It's, you know, that's up to her. I'm just sharing a little bit, keep my mouth shut, and we can move on.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, appreciate it. Okay. I guess that's gonna bring us into our next presentation.
No.
Oh, we have minutes to do, sorry, folks. We have a quorum now, so we're good to hear it. Anybody had a chance to read them? Has everybody had a chance to read the minutes and need a nomination for moving in a second?
I'll make a nomination that
Motion.
make motion to approve the minutes.
Second, the motion, second. So, motion by Carl Kaiserman, second by Drew Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are passed. We'll move on to our next level here of presentations. And yeah, DOT e-bike safety and resources report.
There's a remote too, if you prefer that.
Thank you. Okay.
Hi, my name is Purna Bhattacharya. I'm representing as the bicycle pedestrian coordinator for FDOT District 5. So these sets of slides that I have today, we have that adapted from a safety presentation that was put together for intended for high school students as part of the safety training. So through the slides, you'll see some stylistic choices to appeal to the younger audiences, but this was tailored for today's presentation. So in general, I'll be reviewing e-bike basics, general topics, legal definition of an e-bike, where they can ride, and an update of current laws and what's in the session for this year, and some safety information. So quick overview, you already shared a lot of it. There are 3 classes of e-bikes based on the definition from the Florida statute, and they are classified based on the type of the motor and the top assisted speed. So class 1 is pedal assist only with a maximum speed of 20 miles per hour. And class 2 bikes can have pedal assist or throttle, and they can go up to a speed of 20 miles per hour as well. And then class 3 bikes are pedal assist only with a max speed limited to 28 miles per hour. So no matter what, all legal e-bikes must have working pedals, a seat, a classification label, and cannot have a motor larger than 750 watts. So key point, again, as was stated, on the road, e-bikes follow the same rules as that of cars. On sidewalks, when you're riding e-bikes, you follow the same rules as a pedestrian. And according to Florida law, e-bikes have the same rights and rules as regular bicycles. So e-bikes are clearly defined by the Florida statutes, like I said, FS 316003. Anything that does not meet the definition is not considered an e-bike, and it may not be street legal or may fall into a separate category of motorcycle. Typically, e-bikes also have a class label that identifies the maximum speed and the watts. Now, lots of devices are marketed as e-bikes, but they don't meet the legal definition. Some may even qualify as motor vehicles and may require license, registration, title, and insurance. Even further, some are not road legal and can only be operated on private property. So if something exceeds 750 watts, has no pedal, or goes over 28 miles per hour, it's not an e-bike. And they do have to follow additional requirements for operating on public roads. This includes modified devices that I alluded to earlier. Generally, modifying devices is discouraged as it can void warranties. Now, as I said, e-bikes have the same rights and rules as bicycles, meaning they can ride in all the places that bicycles ride. Some municipalities can enforce their own additional regulations about where they can ride, and they can be stricter than state laws allow, such as setting speed limits on sidewalks, age restrictions, or even prohibition in certain areas or zones, which some cities have implemented. So existing state laws, again, similar to bicycles, but new laws were put in place in the 2025 legislative session that allows municipalities to set additional restrictions. So some like such as age ID and additional e-bike training, requires helmets for all cyclists under 16, same rules as a cyclist would follow on a sidewalk, yielding to pedestrians, and so on. 2026, currently, there is a Senate bill and House bill that's awaiting the governor's desk that would place, if passed, place additional requirements for e-bikes, e-scooters, and other micromobility device operators, especially when it comes to being on shared use path, as well as enhanced data collection when it comes to crash reports. Currently, the crash reports don't necessarily have a field for bike versus e-bike, so sometimes getting that e-bike crash data from crash reports at this time is difficult. So we relied on our partnerships with schools and hospitals and trauma centers to learn more about crash characteristics. And then with regard to safety, obviously e-bikes and e-scooters can travel faster, they handle differently from traditional bicycles. So adding protection in the form of sturdier helmets is recommended. So as with the traditional bicycle, where a properly fitted helmet is the safest way to ride. But for e-bike specific ones have NTA 8776 certification. Again, this slide is kind of incorporated as part of that safety training we offer to high school students, anyone else that's interested in e-bike safety training. So the faster you go, the heavier your device, obviously the greater the stopping distance you need to operate it safely. So stopping distance is generally the length that you need to go from moving to coming to a safe and complete stop. So that includes your perception from the time you see an object, your perception time and your reaction time, and starting to brake and slow down before stopping entirely. So most traditional bicyclists average between 8 to 12 miles per hour. So if you're assuming somebody riding at 10 miles per hour, you would need 29 to 39 feet, up to 40 feet of stopping distance. That's about 2 car limits. On a 20-mile-per-hour speed, it can be anywhere up to 111 feet, which is typically the length of an intersection. You go up to 28 miles per hour, it could take as far as 194 feet to stop. That's about the length of a city block. So DOT has developed resources. We've been working on several brochures, toolkits, social media campaign materials, safety presentations. Some of them are already in circulation, like the ones that are shown here. These are again geared towards high school, middle school students and parents to create that awareness and educating young riders on how to do so safely. We've also included assets like morning announcement, video for, video clubs and, to produce PSAs. Ideas for that. We've also developed other digital materials like social media posts and presentations. So that's all available on the District 5 Office of Safety website. And like I said, we're also coordinating with trauma centers to identify more on the data side, the crash data side of things. So yeah, thank you for your time. And if there are any questions.
You mentioned that you're following the same, rules of the road on a sidewalk as a pedestrian would. But when an e-bike is approaching from behind a pedestrian, I know there was indication bicycle rules are that you have to announce that you're coming. Is there etiquette, official etiquette or so to decide which side you're passing on, and then same question coming towards the pedestrian head on?
It's the same etiquette as a bicyclist, but then again, e-bikes, given the higher speed, some may choose to ride on the road versus the sidewalk or a bike lane. But it's always faster.
They can pass either side.
Yeah.
That's what they do. All right, thank you.
I mean, there are legal requirements and then there's safety etiquette. So,
My question is with the pedestrians, I think we need to educate pedestrians. I was gonna have a question for you later. Where from a transportation point of view, most of our people riding public transit are spending a lot of time on the sidewalk to get to the place for pickup or I'm thinking we probably need to notify them of these changes so their expectations parallel that of the new e-bike rider based on the rules. I don't know if DOT is doing that with transportation local.
So now a lot of our focus has been with students and parents and working with the school districts, but the safety information is available on the website for all agencies to use, and we rely on our partner agencies to help spread the information as well.
Hey, of course, when you were giving your presentation, there was emphasis on the different classes and speed that they're capable of. And like I said earlier, it's talking to you direct, the minute say you're open Skype. Is that my class one was up to 28 miles an hour Sunday, and Debbie, she was up to 28 miles an hour too, in class one. But you emphasized that they're only up to 20. Yet we go faster because the electrical is limited to up to 20. The bicycle itself is capable of greater speeds than 20. And that is not emphasized. That so if you don't know anything about the bike itself, you would think that a class one is limited by a governor to not go faster than 20. And that's certainly not true. You can go as fast as you want to, but electricity then we can help you. Okay.
Right, what I stated is the legal definition of the different e-bike classes. Now, that does not mean every e-bike that's sold as an e-bike or designated as those classes cannot physically exceed that speed, which is why we talk to parents and students about, making sure that the e-bike that you're buying, that you're aware of, the limits that it can go. And also there have been studies on, bikes that are sold as class one or class two, but like you mentioned, can exceed that speed.
Right, just like a car.
Yes.
They get a little program, put it in and totally change the output of horsepower on your vehicle.
Right.
I mean, I get that, but I'm talking to legal people that want to be legal. Parents want to buy their kids a safe e-bike.
Right.
And, that's the direction I'm going in. And that's where the class two gets dangerous because kids are daredevils. And if they don't have to pedal, they just hit a button, and the button takes them over 20 miles an hour.
Right.
With their friends sitting on the handlebar, they might only get 10, 12 miles an hour with the load. But with the button, they can get up to 20 miles an hour. Now it gets to be dangerous. And there isn't enough emphasis on danger in bicycles. All the emphasis in people's minds is 28 mile an hour class three. And that's a relatively safe bicycle, because you have to pedal to get that. It's dangerous when you can get that, especially 20 miles an hour is fast on the bike. Do you ride a bike?
I do,
Then you know that 20 miles an
Yes.
hour, you're at a good clip.
yes.
And the spandex and cleats, they cruise at 25, 26 miles an hour. Bicycles really, really can move on their own.
Right.
And if you're aware of it, you're a good rider. And if you're not aware of it, and that's who I would like to see this concentrated on, and especially the school children. Now, their parents want to get them a safe bike, and there isn't enough emphasis how dangerous the class two is for school kids that are reckless anyway. And that's really what I'm driving at, and I'm trying to get that point home. And if I'm going to talk to some parents about e-bikes, I'm going to tell them, don't buy your kid in class two, but they can do 20 miles an hour with somebody sitting on the handlebars.
Right. We share all of the safety information that's available and the safety etiquette. This doesn't necessarily separate or make recommendations on classes. It's based on currently available information, adding safety information that is.
Practice. Practice.
We're waiting for crash data as well, yes.
Being scooters, they really populate the streets and all that.
So when we talk to students, we do talk about motorized scooters and e-bikes, but this was specifically an e-bike presentation. So this deals specifically with the three classes of e-bikes. But when we're talking to kids, again, more elementary school to early middle, they use more scooters. Even up to high school, there's more electric scooters as well as e-bikes.
Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Okay. I think this is my slide.
Yeah.
Well, excellent job. needless to say, this is a big topic of conversation, and I know we have had a lot of discussion at the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee and also the TPO board about e-bikes, e-scooters, as well as golf carts, or LSVs. But anyway, we also noticed a need for more of a localized resource and really some up-to-date information. And so the e-bike safety webpage on the Space Coast TPO's website was published in March, and it was really to celebrate Florida Bicycle Month. And the resource provides up-to-date information on Brevard County's local ordinances. As you know, Indian Harbor, Satellite Beach, and Cocoa Beach have their own local ordinances. Does Titusville have one that's not? They were discussing that team. Okay, just the three here in Brevard County. So we encourage, everyone to just submit relevant information as it comes in and direct any questions to Leah Nepo in our office. But it also provides high-level legislation, information, safety recommendations, and downloadable educational resources, because we have received a lot of calls from schools, law enforcement. This is a big issue, a big safety concern. And so we wanted to try and provide those resources as well on the local level. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more conversation about this. So please check it out on our website. And that's all I have.
I just had a question. On that page, is there a place for input? Or you would just send it, is there?
There's not a place for input, but you can contact Leah or myself if you have any suggestions or ideas.
Yeah, I was just, based on Pete's comments and some of the input that we're getting, some of this stuff's evolving week to week, month to month. So it'd be nice that, people have comments like Pete's that are, constructive and they're really observation based in the field. And I think it's really important to get those down.
Absolutely.
Because I've, and anecdotally, I've seen things happening now with the bikes of people of all ages that I'm surprised is going on. So that's just, getting that input and that feel from people, I think is important.
And that is why we had some pretty in-depth conversations at the Technical and Citizens Advisory Committee. Pete's on the road. He's seeing this real time, a lot more than some of us are. And he has shared a lot of those observations that we have in turn shared with Brevard County, because I know you guys are potentially in the future, maybe looking at ordinance and others. And that's why we wanted to have that conversation with the governing board members as well. So he has shared a lot of really good information with the whole group.
It's a team effort and, when we read the verbiage, we know that they're not focused into what's really going on there. We try and nudge them a little.
No, I think that input is critical. I just, on the state level, who've been the champions? I just either Porno or you, who've been the champions of legislature, pushing this stuff through? Has it been the DOT in response to concerns? Are there some key legislators that have been doing this? I mean, I'm interested just in general, how this has been evolving a little bit.
There have been some legislators that have been pushing. I don't quote their names, but nothing is approved until it's signed by the governor, which is why, I shared what is currently in the legislative session. But FDOT shares information as requested.
Thanks.
Did Daniel do an introduction before the meeting? I mean, I think he could introduce himself.
Yeah, we're going to move on to some presentations here.
Okay, Dale,
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
so we'll start, Dale, with your Lake to Lake Regional Trail video, but if you want to provide an introduction, you can do so now.
Yes, let me do that. Well, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for allowing me to have some of your time today to make you aware of some things that I hope you will be as interested in as I am. Um, Georgiana, Sarah, and Zoe, thank you very much for accommodating me with this virtual performance. I live in Tallahassee, Florida, and I've got my wife's sister lives in Titusville, so I'm in Brevard County a lot, but I wasn't able to be there for this presentation, and so I'm glad to be able to join you virtually for this. Just a word about myself so you know where I'm coming from on all. I'm a lifelong Florida resident. I've been active in both trails, natural surface trails, and bicycle trails for quite some time now. One of my first projects when I was living up here in North Florida was to get the Department of Transportation to purchase an abandoned railroad corridor that became known as the Tallahassee to St. Mark's Historic Rail Trail Project. And for your information, that's the first of many trails that have been built by the state of Florida, and that happened in 1985. Um, uh, the uh, the purpose of today's discussion with you folks is to, Georgiana and Sarah asked me to share with the BPAC a bigger picture of what's going on around Brevard County and how Brevard County will fit into what I'm going to be sharing with you today. And the emphasis for my presentation today goes back to 2015, where after 3 years of lobbying by a lot of people in Tallahassee, we got the state legislature to approve a piece of legislation creating a new program in the Department of Transportation, which is where the Sun Trails program is housed. SUN, if you don't know, is an acronym for Shared Use Non-Motorized. This was the first piece of substantive legislation in the state of Florida where the state became actively involved in paving and creating these multi-use trails. By way of a little background, until 2015, all the regional or long distance trails in Florida were paid for with federal money through like ICE-T and other federal sharing programs. But in 2015, thanks to the leadership of Andy Gardner, Senate President Andy Gardner, who is an avid bicyclist, who responded to this opportunity to create something that would separate bicyclists from the dangerous roadways of Florida. He went for it, and it turned out to be highly successful. That program has been now underway in DOT for well over 10 years. And the importance of that program, it's all about regional connectivity. What we discovered when we first took this issue to the legislature is that most of the trails were being developed kind of piece by piece. A county would build a piece here, another city would build one over there, and if we are lucky enough to get an abandoned railroad corridor, like the East Central Florida Rail Corridor, we would build one like that, or the Withlacoochee. So at the time of the legislation, there were the longest trail in Florida was just under 50 miles. Now we are approaching where the longest trail in Florida is well over 150 miles, and every month, every year, these trails are getting longer and more connected, and the use on these trails are getting to be quite extraordinary. We don't have yet accurate numbers for all of the trails, but DOT is hard at work trying to gather those statistics. And all we can tell you is what we're seeing from local governments. And some of these trails are getting well over 100,000 users a month, and that's primarily in the major urban areas. So to set the stage in Brevard County for this, I want to share with you a video of a project that we're working on to the west of you in East Central Florida. This is called the Lake to Lake Regional Trail, and this trail came about as a result of the next most significant piece of legislation that passed in 2023, 3 years ago. In 2023, the legislature modified the Sun Trail legislation and did 3 or 4 very significant things. First and most foremost, they took the $25 million annual commitment in the Sun Trail program for these trails and doubled the amount of funding. that DOT has available from $25 to $50 million annually. They also included a large amount of the Florida Wildlife Corridor as one of the opportunities for Sun Trail connectivity. And that caused some people to have some concern. They were really unsure of what paved trails in conservation areas what impact that would have. Would these things be successful, well received? What would it do to the land managers? And so in response to that concern, the organization, by the way, I'm retired from full-time paid work. Everything you're hearing today has been volunteer work that my wife and I have been doing for the last 10, 15 years. But we partnered with an organization called the Florida Greenways and Trails Foundation, a state advocacy organization for these regionally connected projects. We partnered with another statewide organization called the Florida Wildlife Corridor Foundation and set out to see if we could identify a new trail possibility through the eastern half of the Florida Wildlife Corridor. And I'm going to share that with you today on this short video. Once the video is over, I'll answer questions related to it. And then I want to take you to a study we just completed in Brevard County that I think you'll find interesting. So Zoe, if you would start with the Lake to Lake Regional Trail, please, the video.
Yeah, gonna get into that.
Sound? I'm not getting sound.
We can hear it in the room, Dale. I don't know if the sound is connected to the.
Are you hearing it?
Yes, we can hear it in the room, Dale.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, Dale. I didn't realize you couldn't hear it on your end. We're gonna restart it
No,
from the beginning.
That's okay. I know it. I wrote it. It's okay. Keep going.
Yeah, I was talking over for the group, so I'm just gonna restart it for them and then you can still see
Okay.
the video as it's playing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, guys. before we move on. That's daily.
Thank you.
We-
Before you put up the next map, let me just pause for a minute and see if people have any questions, and then I'll set the stage for this last part of the presentation.
So I was gonna say, if you have any questions, you have to speak like right into the microphone for him to hear you.
Do you have any questions for Dale?
I have one,
Carl, make sure to get your mic on.
it is,
Okay.
Bring it real close to your mouth.
okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'd like to know, how you plan on financing this?
There's two answers to that question. There's the first, the cost of building the trails, and there's the second, the cost of managing and operating the trails once they're built. The state of Florida, as I said earlier, has a $50 million a year program that they're using to complete these trails. We are rapidly approaching the completion of the first one of these, which was begun in 2015, called the Coast to Coast Regional Trail. You folks in Brevard County and Titusville area are one of the beneficiaries of that trail, because when it was dreamed up in 2013, the idea was to find one that was had the most completed pieces and see if we could close the gaps and build one that would go all the way across Florida. And that's what the Coast to Coast was designed to do. It was designed to connect Titusville and the Atlantic Ocean and Canaveral seashore all the way across Florida to St. Petersburg and the Gulf of Mexico. At that time, there were 14 pieces built by local and state governments and 7 major gaps that kept you from being able to ride safely from one coast to the other coast. I don't know the final number right now, but we're well over 90% complete on that. And hopefully that will be wrapped up in the next few years. But we're already seeing hundreds, if not thousands, of people out there on that trail. So construction is largely being funded through the Sun Trail program of the Florida Department of Transportation. But there are other federal mechanisms. There are other mechanisms, including federal monies and local bond monies. The second part of the question is, once these trails are built, they become the responsibility of local governments to keep them up, keep them clear of debris, keep them safe. And that's a very big issue. And some counties are finding that to be more than they can, than they're set up to do right now. That's primarily in the rural parts of some counties. That's a bigger struggle, but the major urban counties are tackling this with local resources. Any other questions? Okay. Go ahead.
How much of the corridor is in private hands, or is this all public right of way? Is that established, or are there other partners you need? Like, or at least for connectivity to private lands?
Yeah, that's a great question. These things started in Florida, as did around the rest of the nation, when railroads began to abandon so much of their track. Because of the interstate highway systems, railroads just began to consolidate aggressively in the 50s and 60s. And across the nation right now, there's close to 2,000 rail trail conversions on the ground in place in every state in the nation. Florida entered that process in the 1985 with the St. Mark's Rail Trail. But since then, there have been close to 15 other railroad corridors acquired and completed. Those are all on public-owned right-of-way. The Sun Trail program brought DOT right-of-way more aggressively into the program, and also expanded the reach to, if we have conservation lands with disturbed roads on them, or canals, or old railroad corridors through conservation lands, the legislature specifically directed DOT to figure out ways to try to take these trails into these conservation areas as an opportunity to create a new ecotourism marketplace in some of the rural parts of Florida. The state has invested well into, I think we're up to close to $2 billion acquiring conservation lands for the public. And the biggest complaint for most everybody is it's very difficult for a lot of people to get access to these properties. And the thinking is that these trails are a one mechanism to get a whole new generation of people into the outdoors in Florida safely and practically. My wife and I find that we do a lot more summer trail riding in the summer when we use these trails because you're usually in a shaded corner somewhere. So it's all public right of way is what we're talking about now. There are some instances where private parties are beginning to cooperate because they want their communities connected to these regional trails, but that's just beginning to emerge now, and that's not a big part of the puzzle. Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, eminent good because it's eminent domain that really slows these projects down.
I'm sorry, I can't hear that. Can you speak closer to the mic?
And, it's eminent domain slows these projects down, and when you're doing a corridor, or if MTOT's doing a corridor, they never really talk to the property owners to see if they'd be willing to sell or utilize or work through on the property for these trails. That happens in the next phase after the corridor is established, and that's usually where we get the big delays. In this corridor, are you meeting with the property owners to see if something, at least a concept, can be resolved off the road?
Yeah, you'll be surprised at how few times eminent domain is required, and it's almost entirely used at intersections to make the crossings at intersections more practical. These abandoned railroad corridors, once they're purchased by the state owns that right away. And I know that they want to foster good relationships with landowners. There have been instances where the state has swapped land to put the trail in a place that's more acceptable to the landowner. But we're talking about putting trails within public lands. And so eminent domain shouldn't be required. What we want are the public using these trails in a responsible way, and we want to do it in a way that the landowners feel good about it. So I'm not I occasionally hear instances of conflict, but by far and away the vast majority of these trails are being met with overwhelming public support and enjoyment. Okay, well, let me get into the next part of this because when I had a chance a number of months ago to meet with Georgianne and Sarah and make them aware of the Lake to Lake Trail, I specifically asked them to start thinking about regional connectivity from Brevard County's point of view. What exists in most counties in Florida is that the vast majority of work about how to locate trails within a county are done internal to the counties. And I know the map that you folks have labored on over the years has that orientation. The first long distance trail that was included in that map that ran the entire length of Brevard County is a project you'll see on a map in just a second called the East Coast Greenway. And that project, it was an attempt. If you'll put the map up here, I'll show it to you. Can you pass me the cursor too?
Yeah, I'm gonna try, Dale, sorry, Dale, I'm gonna try when I came in here earlier, okay, it wasn't letting me do this.
Okay, that should work.
Okay,
Can you see my cursor moving?
yes.
Okay, so what you have here is a map of Brevard County on which we've attempted to highlight the regional trail connectivity that is possible from Brevard County, both north and south and west, okay, which is where the Lake to Lake Trail, west of Brevard County, and trying to make sure that the folks, and especially the transportation planning folks, the Space Coast TPO, is aware of these trails to the west and north and is including connections from your internal Brevard system to these regional trails, because that's how you will be able to get access to the Lake to Lake Regional Trail by bicycle once it is built. And what we did is we received a small grant from the Space Coast Health Foundation. They have assisted us before when we were trying to map and understand this question of regional connectivity. They were one of our early funders and supporters when we came up with the coast to coast regional trail concept, and then trying to take that concept and expand it to the local areas, so that we could go and talk to people. They provided us some funding for that, and then they came back and funded this project as well. So this is for your information. We've shared this with Georgianne and Sarah, and I want to share you with what we have learned by looking at regional connectivity from Brevard County's point of view. First of all, there is the East Coast Greenway, which is basically this long trail that comes down all the way through the whole of Brevard County and out the other end. That project was brought to the county. Georgianne, you and Sarah will know more than this, but that's probably been on your maps a good 15, if not 20 years, has it not?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the first of the long distance ones. When the coast to coast was envisioned, it became this corridor up here. This was an abandoned railroad corridor that came down. That was already on the coast to coast maps, and it came into Titusville. And then the plan was to come out to here on the coast to coast to make that overall connection. So those yellow lines are both the coast to coast regional trail and the East Coast Greenway trail that runs from Florida, from Maine all the way to Key West. That's 13 state enterprise that's actually underway in all 13 states. The next thing we looked at was the knowledge that the Lake to Lake regional trail that is being proposed and hopefully will be developed in the next 10 or 20 years lies to your west. We began to look at other regional connections, and what we've discovered is that there is quite a bit of right-of-way available in these 4-lane highways that go east-west. This is 46. That is not 4-lane. That right-of-way is only a 2-lane, but it makes a connection to the Lake to Lake, which is right here. This is what we're showing up on your maps. You can see where it is. That would be one way to access it from the coast to coast and the East Coast Greenway. There's another connector here possible at 50. There's enough right of way on 50 to put a bike trail off-road all the way across to connect to the Lake to Lake at Holopaw. And the third and most interesting one from my point of view is this one on US 192. It also has enough right of way to be able to connect eventually into St. Cloud. And so between the Lake to Lake, these three regional corridors, and the coast to coast, all of a sudden you're beginning to see where the whole region can be interconnected with continuous bike trails if we start focusing on them and paying attention to them. I'm going to share one other piece of information, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. There was also a trail on the Brevard County maps called the Brevard Eco Heritage Trail Corridor. That's pretty much what shows up, I believe, right in through here. It came up this way, and then this way, and then went all the way up eventually like this. That trail we actually went out and looked at in several areas, and I've given feedback to Georgianne and Sarah about it. This piece from one US 192, and I should tell you folks about it, you probably are already using it, goes through the Water Management District lands all the way down here on levees and roads, and it's quite a excellent trail. It's not paved, it's crushed rock surface, but the day we were out there looking at this, we probably bumped into 36 cyclists coming through, either making round trips or north to south. So this is an excellent addition. It's not a regional connector. It would be internal to Brevard County, but it provides another way to, if this regional trail off of 192 were ever developed, to avoid the more congested Space Coast area and come down and come into Fellsmere and down below Brevard County into Vero area. The mid sections are going to be a lot more challenging to put together. The property is, the corridor is not continuous. A lot of it is wet. And that's especially true on the northern part of that up in here. There are parts of the proposed trail that show up in your eco-heritage maps that are in the floodplain of the St. Johns River. And in talking to the water management people, they told me that they would not support any kind of improved trail in this area because seasonally it can be under 2 to 5 feet of water. So just wanted to make you aware of a few of the extra things that we discovered in our research. This map has been given to the Space Coast TPO to inform them, and your folks at Georgiana's here asked me to share this with you folks, which is the purpose of today's discussion. So I'd be happy to answer any questions on this. This is just a regional vision map, and it's one part of a thought that maybe if there's ever an effort to raise money through a local bond issue, having this regional connectivity map available to show the voters what possibly could be accomplished if they were willing to help pay for the system was part of our thinking is why this map was created. So I know I've gone over, but I wanted to give you a lot of information. So ask me any questions you've got. And Sarah, just let me know how much time we've got to be able to do this.
About 10 minutes. 10 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes for Q&A, and so does anybody have anything for Dale? I mean, it's a great presentation, thank you, and the map is really eye-opening. So a lot of us have been here a while, working and looking at these type of things, and this, the vision for this connectivity is pretty good. So Pete, did you have a comment?
Not for him. But I'd like to thank Georgiana and Sarah, that section between Cocoa and Titusville along Risen Parkway that was missing and you guys put in. Appreciate that. That really looks good.
Drew?
Yeah, let me make a comment on that. One of the things that we found in other counties is that the voters are really very supportive of these kinds of bond referendums. There is a deep hunger to be able to travel safely on a bicycle and be able to get places. And what's been missing in terms of our research is the big picture of where this is all going. It'd be like trying to imagine a state highway system in 1920 in Florida, and people just saying, oh man, this can't possibly work. The horses, and railroads are the only way to get around. This gives you a vision for what could be taken to the voters. And every time one of these bond issues ends up in a transportation package with new roads, it makes the road projects more viable. So there's a lot of synergy between multi-use trails and transportation improvements and voter approval for bond measures.
Drew. Bill, excellent presentation. Do you have a question with regard to some of the regional things within the middle of Brevard or a little bit to the south of Brevard? You mentioned the 192 as the effort to go east-west somewhat. Have you considered at all the C-54, I think it is, Tillman Canal? It's a little bit south of 192, but there's a massive amount of property that's got a unique thing and kind of lit up when you talked about the Florida Wildlife Corridor. The Turkey Creek Sanctuary is a city park on Turkey Creek, and the Tillman Canal empties into what then becomes Turkey Creek and has connectivity to the Indian River Lagoon. This ends up being a huge wildlife corridor because it connects to some Yale's properties, Melbourne Shrub Sanctuary east and west, and also 100 acre area nearby Cameron Preserve, Wildlife Preserve. Point being is there's, I think, 600-ish acres of designated conservation area and a whole lot of floodplain. But this east-west possibility of connecting somewhat essentially St. John's north-south tangent to the Indian River Lagoon would tie together basically an east-west opportunity without a whole lot of land issues if the Tillman Canal folks could be convinced be made advantageous to that. It's a possibility. I don't know if you'd consider.
Well, I did not know that, and I'm delighted to hear that because part of this whole effort was not only to identify trail corridors where people could travel safely, both on foot and bicycles, but also to try to help use that to envision corridors for wildlife. These two things are so totally linked together these days because animals suffer from the same problems we do. It's very dangerous crossing high-speed roads. And if we can figure out a way to do it for bicycles, it's going to make the job of doing it for wildlife that much easier. There is a workshop coming up on May 8th in East Central Florida that I think it includes Brevard County, but I know it includes Osceola County and that are about these wildlife corridors. So if there's anybody from your group that is able to attend and make them aware of that corridor you just mentioned, that could be a good addition to the map.
Hi, Dale, this is Sarah. I plan to attend, but we can also send that workshop out to the BPTAC as well.
Okay, very good. Yeah, and just one other thing, so you know, the blue lines, the east-west lines that I spoke to Georgiana and Sarah about a number of months ago, they were very quick to respond to this idea, and I believe you folks have already included those now by resolution on your future bicycle transportation maps, have you not?
When in September, we added 192, and it's escaping me whether it was 50 or 46. I think it was 50. We
It was
talked about
50.
next time that the opportunity adding in 46. But yeah, this group did vote to approve those to our showcase trail map.
Yeah, and I've let the folks of the counties to the west of you know about that. And since I believe we own enough right of way to be able to do this, the question is just getting in line until there's construction funding available through Sun Trails to be able to do this sometime in the future. But they're now on the maps. Very important step.
Yeah, I
Okay.
have a question. I have
Yes,
a quick
please.
question.
Sure.
On 520, why does it stop at F. Burton State Park? And looks like there's pretty wide right of way all the way on that 520 connector to the north and west.
I would have to, it had to end somewhere, and I think that was where the prevailing logic went. This is just a vision map, though, and I'd be the last one to say rely on it for accuracy. You know, it's meant to excite people and think, man, can this really be done? But the question of how it's done is going to be something that's the hard work that the Space Coast TPO is going to have to be deeply involved in. So I really don't know the answer to that.
No, that's okay, because I understand, but from the Orange County line all the way up to, where it intersects with 50, the state, the last 10 or 15 years did a lot of work. And that line is really wide, and it connects to a lot of open space area. And there's county parks in there. There's other preserves that are in that area that would all be connected to that.
Yeah,
so
I can see that. Yeah, that would be great. All right, well, let me leave you.
Just a thought. I don't know. This
Yeah.
map is fantastic as far as really thinking about this connectivity outside outside our boundary. So, and this trail system really kind of facilitates people looking at that. So I'm happy to see that. And one of the things I think you mentioned too was under the National Scenic Trail, where you felt that the Water Management District wouldn't want to see active trails through that area. I just don't know what the upland corridors and all the dikes and all the control features are in that area, but I think that Natural Scenic Trail corridor was thought about following where there was existing, trail systems or some type of maintenance access. So
Yes, I meant to mention that, but I forgot. The orange dots that you see on the center and left center, that is the actual location of the existing Florida National Scenic Trail.
Okay.
Okay, and it does not come into Brevard County.
No, it doesn't. But we have some. Yeah,
I believe you're referring to the St. John Seco Heritage Trail.
I think that's exactly
correct. Yeah.
Sorry, thank you.
The concept, and I believe it was like one of the first greenways and trails last West in 2008.
Yeah.
I think it was first mapped in 2008, and the intention was to use dikes and
Trails and farm roads.
correct. It was supposed to use already disturbed
Yes.
existing.
Yeah, and some of those areas can flood and they may be seasonal dredges and they may not be open to all types of access. I mean, they may be limited to hiking and maybe biking, if that, so, but, I now understand the pattern here, so. Yeah, that was interior to the county, actually, our trail system, which is very similar to that trail. Now, that's, okay, yeah, I got it, thanks.
Yeah, Florida is a big bird watching state, and I don't know if any of you folks are bird watchers, but I do all my bird watching these days from my bicycle because I'm quieter than when I'm stomping through the woods. And I'm astonished at the number of people that are out riding on these existing levees, because I would think that the lack of shade would be a big disincentive. But if you go out early in the morning, it's one of the most beautiful rides you can take in Florida because the wildlife is so spectacular out there. All right, I'm going to leave you with one more positive note and then sign off. I didn't mention this earlier, but I always like to end with it. Both the 2015 legislation that created the Sun Trail program and funded it at $25 million, and the 2023 legislation, Senate Bill 106, that doubled the amount of money and expanded the program. Both of these programs passed both chambers of the Florida legislature, both the House and the Senate, unanimously. These programs are extremely popular with the legislature right now because they see a way to turn around Florida's reputation as the most dangerous bicycle pedestrian state in the nation, and they're willing to invest resources to get it done. The way to take this to the next level is to actively begin building a county-based funding source to match DOT to start connecting all these trails together within your county boundaries. Now is the time to really start thinking about this while there's still funding available at the state level, and I encourage you all to do that. So thank you for sharing the mic with me today. I hope this was of some interest, and I look forward to working with you in any way that I can help.
Thanks, Dale.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dale.
You're welcome.
Okay. On the agenda.
Do you guys have any more comments, at least on Dale's presentation? Everybody good? All right, well, let's move on to member comments. Do you have any comments for discussion? Pete?
Always comes down to money, doesn't it?
If I may, Alan.
Sure.
I know I'm technically not a member, but, so you should have at your spot a federal certification, public hearing. So every 3 years, every 4 years, thank you, quadrennial. I was thinking of transit as triennial. The Space Coast TPO has to be certified by FHWA and FTA. And part of that does involve a public hearing that will take place on May 11th, right before our regularly scheduled TACCAC, our Technical Citizen Advisory Committee. So we'd love for you to come out and, support us or, talk about how you enjoy being a BPTAC member or some of the positives that you've gotten to experience with working with the TPO, or come out and tell us how we can improve. As well, we're accepting all public comments, both, positive and negative. But it's the opportunity to talk about transportation planning specifically. So this isn't project specific, it's more transportation planning, and the feds will be there. We're going to do a little short presentation. So this only happens every 4 years, and you're invited to please come attend. I believe Zoe has sent this out to the group previously.
Hopefully I can't, I think, yes, sorry, I sent out a lot of things. So
We can resend it, when we send that Florida Wildlife Corridor presentations. Workshop as well. Thank you.
So we want to show up and support you. Are they gonna give speaking time?
Yeah.
To the public and, cause you ladies, you do an awful lot for us on a tight budget. I'm amazed at how much you can accomplish with the shoestring budget that you have. And you do a very thorough job, and if I can give you some support, I'm gonna do my best.
Thank
Show up
you.
there. Well, I appreciate, when I joined this, I didn't realize that your plan was dead.
Well, so, we will have a public comment period, so it'll be, 3 minutes like our traditional public comment. But then also, if you can't attend and you would still like to participate, there is a comment form on our website, as well as also you can email Abby. If you would like, to submit a comment to be included in the record, but can't come on a Monday morning, which is totally understandable.
What is most effective?
Showing up in person is most effective, which Pete, you should already be there. It's right before the TAC-CAC.
Yeah, no, and Pete, we appreciate that. And, we, of course, want you to say really good things, but I think the federal team would like to hear, if you have any suggestions on how we can do things better. I mean, it's really just about providing comments. We appreciate you guys. So we encourage you to get up and speak, because I think that the federal team would really love to hear that from not only our members, but from the public.
Drew? Just a real quick comment, just I'm encouraging all of us to go back to our respective dorms. And if we can influence any websites that have public input or public review, with regard to what Portland had said, very good presentation, but I think FDOT has finally really recognized the e-bike problem. And I think I took a look at some of the literature that you've referenced out there, and I posted it on a couple websites I'm involved with. Just thinking that, I think the thought being is we now have rhetoric, there's feedback going in, there's ideas, it's finally out there. I think it was kind of a problem everybody knew about, but didn't sense that things were being addressed or recognized. And I think part of our success in kind of Vision Zero on things involving the e-bikes, maybe based on people's input and reaction to this new legislation, these new pamphlets, rules, ideas. I think we need to really say, hey, there's some news out there. Everybody was always asking questions, but I think now there's a presence that they can reference. So I recommend anybody, if you can influence it, by putting that link out with things you can influence. Thank you.
I'd like to give, Drew some feedback on that. I give some kid in Satellite Beach, young. And, we were talking about bicycles, and I asked you, take your bicycle to school, and he told me that all the friends have e-bikes. So, as far as the younger crowd goes, in some of the more affluent areas, the use of e-bikes has just exploded. And that's where the problems are. And that's where people are getting pissed off, because, they're not used to. I saw it on the trails a long time ago, when it started infiltrating and you started hearing it on the streets and da-da-da and da-da-da, and that got them involved. And so, it's like, how do we bring it back in, but we're not gonna bring it back in, so how are we gonna control it, and that's where we're at.
So I just had a question about Vision Zero. And I can't remember if I heard it earlier. Are we gonna be coming back with a presentation to the BPTAC in future meetings to go over that? Because we had the great, event last week. So last week? Yeah.
At least 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Okay, yeah, 2 weeks ago. So, there's a lot of, I sit and work with that group also. We have a lot of overlap into what we do. So I think it'd be really great for them to see the toolkit, our first shot at that and how that's going to be taken out to the communities and things. And since we all represent certain parts of the community, it would be nice to be able to be an advocate for this group, to be an advocate for it too. So.
Yeah, so the Vision Zero toolkit is either going to come into the June or the August BPAC meeting. I need to just check with Patty because she was going to bring it at the same time as bringing the Vision Zero annual report. And so I just need to get with her on when is the annual report going to be done as far as the timing, because she was targeting that for the July board meeting. So if June might be a little too tight for the agenda package, so it might be August. But yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Got a chance to participate, I think. Everybody else was here from the BPAC on the site staff. And Yeah, looking forward to seeing. So, anybody else have any, member comments? Anybody want to share anything else? All right, seeing none, I guess, do I need a nomination?
No.
Recommendation to adjourn, or are we just a straight adjourn?
We can adjourn.
All right, thanks, everybody. Great meeting. A lot tonight too. And, we'll see you at the next meeting. So meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dale.
Brad. Brad, it's